G'day guys, how's it going? So in this video, we're going to start looking at blocks and scope in Rust. And this is probably the first thing you need to understand when thinking of memory in Rust. So what is a block and what is a scope? Well, firstly, let's talk about blocks. Blocks are essentially anything that go inside of curly angle braces like this, right? So that right there, what I've just typed, is a block. The little curly parentheses on the outside that define the function body, that's also a block. So right there, I'm inside a function block. I can have an if block, right? So that's a block there. I can have a for loop like so, and that's a block, right? So hopefully you get the idea, right? And blocks can even do things like return expressions. Like I can do something like block result equals, and then in here I can just return 1 plus 2, right? And this is considered a block that returns a value, right? So basically anything that's curly angle braces is a block, right? That's all you really need to know. However, scope's a little bit more difficult to understand. Well, sort of. So a scope is essentially the lifetime of, let's just say, most variables. We won't say all for now. I want to be politically correct here. But basically, the scope of a variable lives for the lifetime of a block, right? So what I mean by that is simply this. I have a main function here. If I define, say, two variables, like so, those two variables there live for the life of this block, right? This function. So when this function executes, x and y will be created and initialized. And then when we get to the end of the function, x and y is basically gone and removed from memory. Now, we haven't discussed how that happens just yet, but just understand from a scoping point of view, those variables are only available as long as that function exists, okay? We can also do something like this, right? We can then say inside of that block that we just showed, right? I could define another variable, let's say a z, right? And set that to 3. Now, if I decide to print out the results of these, so let's say print line, we'll say x in main is x, and print line y in main is y. And then inside here, we do, whoops, you didn't see that. That was the final result. So in here, if I put Z instead, right, it's going to show us the values that are defined for each variable because this print statement is currently accompanied inside the block that the variable is declared in, right? Now, the other thing that we need to understand about blocks and scope is that a variable that's declared in a block that's on the outer of an inner block is available to the inner block. So what I mean by this is that I can actually access x and y inside of this inner block, right? And if I now change the messaging here, which is what I should have done before, if I say main inner block, and I'll just do the same for the other two here. Like so, you're still going to see down the bottom that we can access those variables. We don't get any actual compiler errors, right? However, this Z variable is declared inside of this block. Therefore, its scope is to this block only, which means that if I try to do something like this, where I define outside of here, Z in main is Z, it's going to give me an error because, as it says on screen, cannot find Z in this scope. So it's tried to find Z somewhere defined in this function and said, nope, it doesn't exist. It may exist in a block here, but it doesn't exist at this level, this scope level. So even when you run it, it's going to throw a compiler error and tell us that it couldn't do this for that exact same reason. Cool? So that's just something to keep in mind. So anything declared in an outer block is available in an inner block, but not the other way around. Okay? Now, just to demonstrate that it's not just curly brackets and things like that, let's say, for example, I have an if condition, right? Let's say true. If true, and then I go let e equals 5, and then I go print line e in if condition is e. Well, that's going to basically run e in if condition is 5, right? Cool. That's what we expect. But again, if I try to go print line e outside if condition is, and then I try to access e, once again, this is a block that's inner to the main block. So as a result, we can't access it. Cool? And we could take this another step further just to prove that it actually changed down as well. So if I come into here and I go straight after it, I go let f equals 6, right? Let me just get rid of this print statement because it's not going to work. I can basically take the same line here and go f in if condition in a block is f, right? And in this situation, the code will work. I can even grab e because it's outside of this inner block, therefore it's available to this block because it's scoped at this level. I can now put in the same thing here. And hopefully by now you're getting the idea, right? You're getting the idea that as long as it's scoped to an outer block, it's available in an inner block. Cool? But not the other way around. All right. So I could show you other examples like ifs and all that, but really, when we think about it, it's not that important, okay? Now, one other topic I just want to quickly cover before we finish this video up, and that is basically shadowing in Rust. Now, let's do something like this, right? If I say let x equal, say, 5, and then I print, say here, x in main is x, right? If I do this, makes sense. You know, x is 5, right? Now, if I create a block and then I redefine the same variable inside of here, what do you think is going to happen? Well, the answer is it's not actually going to throw an error. In fact, if I come in and print in a block is x, right? What it's going to do is it's going to shadow the previous value up here and redeclare or reinitialize the x for this block. So when I run it, what you're going to see is x in inner block is 10, but then once it leaves that block, it now detects there's a x here, and basically you can see it's been set to 5 up there. So then when it prints it, it's 5. Now we'll talk a little bit more as to why these things are happening, but this is a very high level understanding of what a scope and a block is in Rust. And I'm going to finish the video up there, guys, and I will see you all in the next one.